I will now call to order the January 12th, 2016 meeting of the Traffic Review Advisory Board. Good afternoon and welcome. The Traffic Review Advisory Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic within the city of Oshkosh. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If the board does not recommend an item and you don't agree with our decision, you may discuss the item with any common council member, and the council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding the item. All items recommended by this board require 2 readings before the common council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, January 26, 2016 at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, February 9th, 2016 at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak to the item. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time if you would like to speak, please step up to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item you are speaking to. The item will then come back to the board for discussion and action. Okay, first item, approval of minutes. Came in here.
Yeah, they're way in the back.
Huh?
That's the maps.
Passed them.
Different.
Oh, here we go. Oh, it's new format, that's fine. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, we've been trying this format out for the different boards. Seems to be a little cleaner.
Yeah, yeah. Move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Public comment. Anybody here for public comment? See none? New business. A request for no parking on West New York Avenue South Side from 90 feet west of Algoma Boulevard to Algoma Boulevard. Current condition is it's signed no parking on the south side from 90 feet west of Algoma Boulevard to Algoma Boulevard, but not an ordinance.
This is just a request from the transit department. There's a bus stop just before Algoma on West New York, and we do have there's at least one passenger there that boards pretty often that's in a wheelchair, and when there's cars parked there, it makes it difficult for them to board. And this is in the university area, so it's pretty heavily parked with college students. So this would just allow enough room so that the bus could stop and they could safely board.
Yeah, but this here says it's already signed that though.
I think
signed no parking.
I think that's a typo. I don't think it's signed yet.
I was wondering about that.
Well, what is our
Not signed.
ordinance on distance from bus stops anyways for parking?
We don't have one. We've discussed that.
No, we have. I thought we kind of,
I haven't got to formally adopting one yet, but I think that's still a good idea that we should probably look at
I
doing
think
it.
in some of the cases, we've actually moved the bus stop to an opposite
Right.
side of an intersection or something to clear things up, but, yeah, we don't have anything across the board that addresses it.
distance from. Okay.
Yeah.
I know we're talking on this issue, but most communities have an ordinance that you're aware of that has distances, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I know-
That's something that's been on my radar. I just
Yeah.
haven't got to it.
I know in my travels, I generally see that it's no parking within the bus stop area, and it's, you know,
Make distance, yeah.
yeah,
To me, it makes sense, especially
Yeah.
if we have a disabled person that regularly uses the
Sure.
bus stop there, that we should have that. So I'd support it. So.
any other discussion?
Move it.
Second. Call the roll?
Haas,
Aye.
Berman,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Schuster,
Aye.
Szynski,
Aye.
Wandschneider,
Aye.
Becker.
Item 2, a request to update the parking restrictions on Mount Vernon Street from Washington Avenue to Merritt Avenue.
This is in conjunction with the reconstruction of Mount Vernon Street. So the ordinance is pretty much the same as what it was before, other than we had to update some of the distances, because now there's a couple new curb cuts, and the intersection aligns a little bit differently. So other than that, it's pretty much the same as what was there. We had to move it a little bit, the no parking based on where the book drop is, and then based on where those curb cuts were. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. There's an area of permit parking on the west side past the book drop, up to about halfway up to Washington Avenue, and then there's some 2-hour parking on the west side, and then on the east side, it's pretty much, there's a little bit of 2-hour parking by the corner of Washington, but then it's no parking on that side, and it's pretty much consistent with a one-way street in the city. And then the other thing just to note is there's no parking towards the intersection with Merritt, and that was, in the past, it had been a higher crash locations, and since they've removed the parking there, it has went down quite a bit.
So presently, this is all signed as this is written?
Yep.
Okay.
Move it.
I'll second it. Call the roll.
Schuster,
Aye.
Weinschneider,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Haas,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Szynski.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
Item number 3, a request to create a right turn only lane on Oakwood Road for southbound vehicles to turn west onto 9th Avenue. The current condition is 2 lanes which can be used to go straight or turn.
This was a request from a couple of city staff members, but it makes sense. This intersection, there's parking allowed on Oakwood Road, and to the south of 9th. And by creating a right turn only lane, that will ensure that basically what happens now is at the intersection when you go south through past 9th Street, then parking is allowed there after 6 p.m. on Oakwood Avenue. So right now, basically, cars are going straight in both the southbound lanes. There usually aren't a lot of cars parked on Oakwood, but if there are, then it creates a conflict. And now, until they get the snow removed from the inside lane, you still have to merge over to the center. Mm-hmm. So people are driving it like a 4-lane road, which it isn't designated as currently. It's kind of a free-for-all there. This would kind of match what Oakwood and Whitson have turn lanes there. So it would seem to make sense. There isn't a lot of accident history there. There are a few a year, but most of them are because it's a 4-way stop where one person thinks they have the other person waved them on, or something like that happens and ends up in a crash. 9th Avenue is 48 feet wide east of the intersection, and it's 20 feet west. So going west on 9th, that's basically a local 2-lane road. But the pavement on Oakwood's 48 feet, which does allow enough room. If you wanted to, you could use them both as through lanes. So it's unclear whether designating that inside the southbound lane as a right turn will reduce crashes, but it would eliminate the conflict when you get south of the intersection with both, if both cars want to go straight. And if recommended, we would implement that. It wouldn't happen, obviously, till the street painting season.
Now, is it a parked car issue that you're dealing with then, really?
Parking is allowed after 6 PM on Oakwood, south of the intersection. So this would avoid that conflict if there's a car parked there, having to get into the middle lane.
And is there a need for that for after 6? I mean, is there a demand?
For parking, I couldn't really say that if there is or there isn't. There really, right now, there aren't cars parked there very often. But that's the way that when they constructed Oakwood, it's pretty much been that way since. So I assume when they did the construction, there were people that were in favor of parking at night there, or after 6 PM. Whether it's needed or, I don't know.
That was my point.
Yeah.
Is it really necessary or not?
There has been, and there's been considerations on Oakwood Road, I know, over the years, whether that should be a 4-lane road, whether that should maybe be on a road diet. I know we talked about it in conjunction with the Murdoch Avenue. The town of Algoma has striped it, so basically it's restricted to 2 lanes. That's another way to do it. Those are some ideas we could maybe look at in the future. The main reason for this request, though, is to prevent the conflict from 2 cars going straight and then having to merge.
This person is in the city or the town?
This is the city.
Lane changing, gets to be an issue. No.
Then you're not proposing that cars coming north that might want to turn left have a turn lane themselves either, right? You're
Right.
just looking at it one.
Just on the south.
Just going south, yeah.
And north,
I mean, if you're going to do the intersection, wouldn't it make sense to do both sides of the intersection?
the-
Or
It'd be less confusing, but the problem is it's a hybrid type of a scenario because when you cut across go across Ninth, it's 2 lanes. By
Right.
definition, because of the white lines. So, to be honest with you, I appreciate what you're saying, Steve, but I think it's going to serve to be more confusing.
Okay, I just, for consistency is what I was.
Oh, yeah, and I get
You know.
that, but,
yeah, and I thought about that too. The difference is there isn't parking allowed north of 9th on
Okay.
Oakwood, and there is south of 9th, so that's what the difference is.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. All right,
And it is, and like Mr. Beck, and it is striped as 4 lanes when you go past 9th.
okay.
I kind of tried to depict that on this picture that I put here. So it's not striped south of 9th, but it is north. Because I don't think we've ever decided south if that should be 4 lanes or not.
I know it's come up in discussions over the years, but I think it always came down to really, nobody's raised any issues with it, and so we just always kind of left it be.
Okay.
well, I mean, what you typically see, and I travel that road quite often, just because of where my business is located and where I have to go, but you get people and it's passing on the right scenario
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
On Oakwood Road. It presents a little bit of a safety issue. I mean, there's some merit to striping it as 2 lanes, in my opinion, but
Wait,
that would necessitate the removal of the parking.
right, exactly.
But, as Ross points out or asked before, I very rarely see a car parked on Oakwood Road.
Yeah, and I can't tell you the last time I did it, I've seen one either.
You know,
I drive that every day. I don't think I've ever seen a park car.
And like you said earlier, even the idea of a road diet, I mean, that'd be something to consider
and
too.
then you get the transition issues though, from
Yeah,
north of 9th to south of.
but we've got transition issues,
Yeah, yeah.
Murdoch thing, and
True.
it seems to be working out,
Yeah, well,
So I think at some point, that's something we should probably consider, whether that should be 4 lane or,
Eliminate the parking.
And then, yeah, then we'd have to eliminate the parking, or whether it goes to some type of road diet.
No, you know, doesn't seem important enough to keep.
Well, it's not important until you ask people to remove parking from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you sent out just a survey to all the residents in the area and send them back, just to get a feel for what their thoughts are and kind of.
It goes back to the whole 9th Street issue.
Yeah.
Parking.
Well, you got the volume there though, like 9th? Parking,
Oh, no.
I don't think so.
Traffic volume's obviously a lot.
I don't think so.
I'm just saying with the uproar of residents and the
Oh,
parking.
yeah.
You don't know till you ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't travel that area much, so not aware of the,
Well, I guess if the transportation department feels it's warranted, I guess we can give it a try, and if there are problems or accidents would go up for some reason, or we get complaints from citizens, we can always revisit it. Second.
Call the roll.
Schuster,
Aye.
Wanschneider, Becker,
Aye.
Haas,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Ross,
Right.
Kuzinski,
Aye.
carried 7-0.
Item 4, a request for a yield sign at the intersection of Dove Street and Arthur Avenue. The current condition is no traffic control.
This is a request from one of the residents that lives at the corner there. I had some discussions with him. I told him that, I didn't feel it was warranted, but if he really was real interested in it, I could put it on the board's agenda, and requested that he attend. He did say he couldn't attend, but he was going to let some of his neighbors know that we're in favor, but I don't see that anyone's made it. But this neighborhood, I think it's come up a couple times since I've been here anyway. That neighborhood's kind of interesting because we have a ton of yield signs in that neighborhood. It seems like almost every block has. I'm not sure what happened. I mean, in my opinion, it's oversigned the way it is, but there are a lot of yield signs, and I think then what happens is the residents that don't have one think they should have one, so you get kind of that scenario going on. But his concerns were that the cars were flying down Arthur Avenue and not slowing down at the intersection. Then he also claimed that they were speeding on Dove Street. I did talk to the police department, and they said they weren't really aware of any issues there. They said they would add it to their list to monitor, but they didn't see it as being an issue. And I did explain to the resident, too, that kind of what the warrants are for stop or yield signs, and that intersection doesn't currently meet any of them. It's, 3 or more right-angle accidents in a 12-month period, or 5 in a 2-year period. There's only been 1 in 2005, 1 in 2007, and 1 in 2010, and those weren't necessarily right-angle accidents. And then 3,000 or more vehicles a day, and we're not anywhere close to that. We're under 100.
What's peak volume there, though?
It's about 150 a day. I had the traffic counts done, and it basically, that was about the highest I saw.
Let me guess, between 3 and 4.
Yep.
I can fully appreciate that it doesn't meet warrants, but four-way uncontrolled intersections are, in my opinion, a recipe for disaster. Because, as Tim and Steve might attest, it's a second. I mean, you're second early or second late, and it's, no problem, but if you're there at that second, it's a problem. I mean, at least if we put a yield sign there, there's some potential consequence for the party involved. And we've got neighborhoods all over town that have, back in your neighborhood, if I'm not mistaken, there's quite a few four-way uncontrolled. And, all it takes, like I said, split second.
And then you go on the north side of Oshkosh, you go up down Evans and Grove and all those streets, there, every other intersection has a yield sign.
Yep.
So, I think that's a pattern that the city has used in the past to kind of keep the speeds down in residential neighborhoods.
Sure.
Because I do think, even though a lot of people don't slow down at yield signs, there's a good portion of drivers that do.
Yeah.
And I mean, even roundabouts are a good example. You don't have to yield if there's no car coming, but most
Yeah.
people do.
Yeah.
You know, so I agree with Dan that, in some cases, I know it doesn't meet the criteria, but it is a way to slow speeds down in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And I think that's a concern that a lot of citizens have, because, even doing 25 in a residential neighborhood looks like you're doing 30, 35. I mean, Tim and I live in the same street, and, we got cars going by there. I'm sure they're doing 30, 35, but a lot of them are doing 25, and it looks like they're going a lot faster, just because of the closeness of the residential
Yeah.
properties as the car goes by, and so,
Yeah, the other thing I think it's interesting here is that, and I agree that sometimes it does make sense, like we had one last meeting, the one in Fairfax, and that one made sense. There's higher traffic volume there, of course, as well, but the other thing, this one it's a dead end on the, my bearings, the north side, and then the south, once you go another intersection, there's a yield sign, so I don't know how much a yield sign would help there.
How about a speed bump? We're talking about speed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people treat stop signs like yield signs.
Yep.
And the yield sign is like non-existent. And
It-
if there's a speed issue, you can control it with a speed bump.
Yeah, that is, that's a good point. I mean, that is one of the methods for traffic calming. That's on the higher end of the scale for traffic calming methods. The stop and the yield sign, the concern with using or over-signing is that then the ones that are warranted get disobeyed, or you start seeing them, so many of them, you stop paying attention. But with a speed hump, the issue with those, and that if you did have a severe speeding problem, that is a solution. Those are on the higher end, and they're the most expensive. Normally, we would look at those with street reconstruction because they are so expensive. So we don't put those in generally unless there's a real severe problem. Unless there's a street reconstruction and the residents petition for one. That's, I believe, this is a little before my time, but I believe on Parkway, when we reconstructed that, we put speed humps in, and that was, the residents petitioned for it. We were able to put it in with the street reconstruction budget. I don't think this would necessarily be the best area for one right now, just based on the cost, but.
What does Dove and Van Buren have on it? Do you know?
Van Buren is the one to
For the
south.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a yield sign. I can't remember which side it's on, though.
all right. So it might be yielding to traffic from Van Buren. So then giving Dove, I guess, where would you be putting the yield sign on this? Would it be yielding all,
No, we would probably put it on,
would it be yielding Dove traffic?
right.
Okay.
And that's another interesting point there, is that as you go down this, I guess you call it the presidential neighborhood because of all the streets, but that area, some of the yield signs are north-south and some of them are east-west, and it's almost, I don't know what the pattern is, but there doesn't seem to be a real specific pattern, but.
I mean, just because if there is no yield to the Dove traffic by the Van Buren intersection, it may be causing traffic to steadily ramp up faster at that point. So, it it might help a little bit just to have something there, but I mean, if it's too much because all the intersections are hit or miss of where the yield signs are, that's where it gets confusing.
I guess before we make any decision, we should know what the pattern is
Right.
in that area, so we're not piling up all the yield signs on Dove Street traffic, and, we would want to stagger them, but I think it doesn't hurt to install 2 yield signs, it just depends on, which direction they're gonna be controlling.
and then you look at the accident statistics, 3 accidents in 5 years.
Yeah,
I don't, as Mr. Collins said, to put signs up just to put signs up, doesn't sound like we're having a real problem with that intersection. And you got 1 in 5, 1 in 7, 1 in 10. Doesn't seem to hit hit any, as you said, any of the criteria, I just think we should monitor it for a while, and if we get a few more complaints, then maybe readdress it again, but I agree, we don't want to start putting signs out to control intersections that we don't really have a problem with.
Well, by the looks of it, Dove and Van Buren, it looks like Dove Street has the yield sign for north and south traffic,
Okay.
just based on the shadows I see.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull it up on my phone. I didn't pull up the projector,
The
but
resolution.
So then you'd have two in a row, in a sense,
Yeah,
right?
so then you'd want to actually yield Arthur.
And does the resident say which, is it the,
I think he says the Dove Street traffic
Dove Street,
picks up
okay.
speed, right?
right. Well, he says both. He says they're coming off of Sawyer pretty fast, and then he also said on Dove they were, and I did question that a little bit on Dove, because I said, well, if you're coming from the north, you're coming from a dead end.
Right.
But I guess
I mean, they gotta be
you could
laying down
theoretically get going.
the pedal pretty hard, I mean, so that distance isn't huge,
Yeah,
so I just don't know if that length of roadway is enough to get going to the extreme, and as you guys had said, sometimes your 25 mile an hour as you're standing on your city street may look like they're really speeding, but they're not, so.
so do we want to,
We have to vote on it, so I guess we'll move it.
Could you maybe like in summer put those things that show what the speed is? Do those record what the speeds of the vehicles are? Or, yeah.
Yeah, those are actually the police departments, but we can do a speed study with the tube counters. They record.
That might be worth the information, just to see if there is a speeding issue down there.
'Cause, I mean, none of the streets have much of a, way to build up on speed.
Right. We can do a speed study. I just did the traffic count. We didn't do speed when we put them out, but something we can do.
That'll give a better determination of which street to put the sign on.
The count was pretty even between the two, so that's one thing I looked at. If I did recommend putting one, which way we would do, and it was, as far as counts go, it was pretty equal.
So you feel about deferring it till you take a further speed study, or?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
okay, so you've already moved.
I moved it back and withdraw that move. If we want to refer it to more studying, we can do that too. I have no problem with that. That's what the majority of the group feels we should do, is get some more information on, speeds of cars in the area, and maybe by the time we revisit it, I mean, this time of year, you might not get the same volume of traffic you'll get in the spring and summer either.
Right.
So, maybe it's revisited next fall, so that then we have this summer of hopefully no accidents, but we'll have another year of data maybe, or some more data to warrant whether we should do something there or not.
Okay.
If you want a motion, I'll make a motion to delay it until we get further data from the department, traffic department, transportation department, I should say.
Get a second on it?
that.
Second, okay.
Dove currently yields to Van Buren.
Self-use, okay. If we put it on Dove, that would be a second back-to-back.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to delay any action on this L. We get a speed study on it. Any other discussion? Call the roll?
Schuster,
Yes.
Von Schneider,
Yes.
Becker?
Aye.
Haas?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Ross?
All right.
Kuzinski?
Aye.
7-0.
Staff statements, intersection of Wisconsin Viola and Wisconsin Linwood.
So you're thinking, just to go back on that one, you're
Yeah.
thinking the speed study in like spring?
Yeah,
Yeah, wait till the snow's gone and,
Okay, can do that.
because I agree with Mr. Becker. I think that kids are probably one of the bigger issues.
Yeah,
And so, in the winter, I don't think you're maybe going to have those issues, but come spring, summer, that could be when the problem, I don't know when the gentleman contacted.
sure. It was just about before Christmas, it was about a month ago.
So, yeah, I think if we delayed it till early fall or end of summer.
Okay, the last meeting, you were just, I think Mr. Wanstead had asked about why there was a four-way stop sign at Wisconsin and Viola and not Wisconsin and Linwood. I did research that and looked in our archives. I wasn't able to find the exact reason. It appears that it's been that way for quite a long time, because I couldn't find any record of where we had added it. So, I mean, my best guess driving down there and looking at it is that it may have been installed, like, interestingly enough, to slow down traffic on Wisconsin between Linwood and Jackson. You know, as we talked about, the MUTCD says you're not supposed to use those for speed management, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't been done or in the past. There is no accident history in the last 10 to 15 years at Viola in Wisconsin. So it appears to be working. The accident history at Linwood in Wisconsin is shown below here. It looks like we went from, it's anywhere between 1 and 4 since 2002, with the high being 4 in 2010. But then it's went down to 2 in 2012, 2 in 13, and 1 in 14. Looking at those accidents, I don't know that if a stop or yield sign would have prevented any of those. A couple of them were due to weather. And with having the stop sign at Viola in Wisconsin, I don't really see a need to alter it. I think it was just more of an inquiry why it was like that.
I was just wondering now with the Quick Trip there off of Linwood, I think that opened in like 2010, if maybe that little spike in traffic, because there was more traffic in that general area at the time. But I agree, I personally thought Linwood would be the intersection because it's such a straight kind of shot all the way east.
and it's the busier of the two.
Busier intersection
Yeah.
in Viola.
And you don't have to look at it as you're using the stop sign to control speed.
Right.
It's volume.
And there's a lot of traffic on Linwood, east and
Yeah.
west, out of Quick Trip.
Absolutely.
In the mornings, afternoons, that shift changes. It's amazing how much traffic travels Linwood. And even early in the morning, there's a lot of truck traffic. A lot of truckers will pull off on Linwood, even though it's not a truck route,
Right.
to run in Quick Trip, get a sandwich, coffee, or whatever, and then they go up to Wisconsin and then get back on their route. So there is a lot of movement. 6 to 7 in the morning, again at 3 to 4, and then around 5 to 6. It gets pretty heavy over there.
And then also, when there's events at the football field outside our track, there's quite a bit of traffic and
Yeah.
parking issues on Linwood. So, I mean, I don't know if it would warrant to move it a block, if we'd have a lot of opposition if we moved it from Viola to Linwood. I think there's one needed in that area, don't get me wrong there, because that is quite residential with a lot of traffic, with the school being there and the athletic fields being right in that general area too. But I would think Linwood would make more sense now with the way
Right.
that area's growing up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it might have had something to do with the church being in that general area too.
That's very possible.
It had something to help get traffic out of that parking lot in the
Yeah.
church and stuff, but moving it to one block, I don't think would affect the church any.
What I could do, I mean, the initial, you just asked me to look into it, but
Yeah.
if what you're saying is you want to propose moving it, I could look at that as an agenda item for the next meeting, and then, you know, obviously notice what I would do then is I would look for the traffic count and
Yeah.
then do the analysis and then
And
notify
you're
everybody. in the area.
the instructor here, what do you, how do you envision, or do you see issues there in that area? I'm sure you take kids in that area and practice with
Yeah,
them.
I do, unfortunately, because you got to get them from north.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to the volume. It really does.
Okay.
And you're exactly right. Linwood's got the higher volume, particularly in the spring.
You also got car doors opening and.
Well, that's a street width issue, but yeah, I mean, it's,
Well, I know, but it's again with the speed and the volume.
yeah, true.
You would tend to modify it more with a stop, four-way.
True. I mean, if you knew it was coming, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And you have apartment complexes in that area that you have traffic coming in and out of parking lots. So you want to keep that speed somewhat down in that area. So I think a stop sign would be the most effective to control volume of cars going east and west, and then the traffic speeds maybe going north and south on Wisconsin.
I think you'd be more consistent too if you want to look at it citywide. I mean, where there are stop signs as you go east to west, Linwood and Wisconsin and Jackson and Maine and so on and so forth. And you're omitting one at Wisconsin with the higher volume and then other changes that have taken place.
And I think some of the residents in that area that maybe don't like the road diet have switched over to Linwood, thoroughfare
Possible.
to go east and west too. Because you really don't get stopped until you get down towards, was it Mitchell or one of them other side streets that just stops in?
Well, Vinland.
Or
is-
Vinland.
Yeah, you got Vinland, and then you've got, what is it, Sheridan?
Algoma.
Well, but
Well, yeah.
before
Well,
Algoma, you got
There's
Sheridan.
one more, I think,
Sher-
somewhere,
Sheridan, I think. Sheridan or Minerva, one of those, yeah.
Yeah.
so that's quite a stretch to.
Sure. So what I can do is, so I think what I'm hearing you say is you want to see if we can move it, the block over.
Well, let's
from-
see what the numbers say.
Okay.
If it warrants that, obviously, you said you have no traffic accidents at all on Viola in Wisconsin, but now Linwood in Wisconsin, you got 21 in a 12-year period, so.
Flip-flop it and see what happens.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
I have a good friend that lives on Linwood and it's kind of on the curve, and it's gotten a little hairy over the last few years.
And you got a church on Linwood,
Yeah.
too, that board comes off of.
Which, correct. But it's been more of a hassle getting out of her driveway. And give it a try.
Anybody have anything else? Questions, concerns? Actually, have we gotten any recent feedback on the road diet on Murdoch? Has anybody called screaming and hollering, or?
No, the only thing is, Mr. Herman had said he'd got some comments on the signage when you go from east to west. When you come through the roundabout before you get to Wisconsin, and then the inside lane becomes the left turn lane onto Wisconsin. So we do have a sign on the right-hand side when you come out of the roundabout by the Chinese restaurant there that indicates, and then we also have it painted that that's the left turn lane. The thing we thought of that we're going to try is we can put a sign as you're coming into the roundabout. Basically, there's the one-way sign and the yield sign, somewhere in that area that would say the through traffic use outside lane. So when you get to the roundabout, if you saw the sign, you would know that it should be in the outside lane.
Right, that was a complaint. I got a couple citizens that contacted me, and that was their concern. Because most of the cars coming, making a right turn from Jackson, they're already in that lane. But if you're on the inside lane of the roundabout wanting to go straight, you're really in the turn lane when you come around the outer.
Yeah, and then you're competing with
And then
that
you're-
traffic
right.
that's coming, continuing.
Now with the snow, that's almost really a lane and a half.
Yeah.
That's all you really got there right now.
Yeah,
So my suggestion was some type of signage on the on the east side of the roundabouts, around Taco Bell, somewhere in there, that would kind of get people to think that maybe it's all it is that was a yellow sign where it kind of has the road narrows or sharrows or whatever it's called, would be all it would have to be. And, people would start to pay a little more attention to that they
Well,
need to take the
yeah.
outside lane going into the roundabout so they don't have to make that lane change. Because that is pretty short.
Yeah.
Well, and the experience I have is I go north on Jackson, so I'm in the left lane, coming through the roundabout to go west on Murdoch, and probably 50% of the time, all of a sudden, I'm getting ready to make my move over to the right lane, and there's somebody coming up alongside of me. Well, now all of a sudden, I'm in a left turn lane, and I'm stuck making a left turn onto Wisconsin. And the other thing I've noticed, at peak traffic times, that westbound traffic is backing up into the roundabout from the traffic signals. It's happened quite a bit. I mean, westbound traffic on Murdoch is at the signals at Wisconsin, and that westbound traffic is backing up, and it's past Lee Yang's coming into the actual roundabout, so that's...
What time is
Did
that,
they
eh?
change the length of time?
Right, well, now that I think those lights are detected, so
Yeah.
it's going based on traffic, so they're never the same twice.
Oh, okay.
But it's usually right around 10, quarter after 3 in the afternoon.
Businesses are letting out
Yeah.
the industrial park.
Other than that, like I said, I drive it several times a day. The speeds are definitely down. I mean, it's probably 35 miles
You
an
can
hour.
just feel it right
Yeah,
from, right
it's-
from the start.
Back in the day, it was 40, 45,
Yeah.
and now it's just a
Working
consistent
beautiful.
35. So I think for a speed reduction effort, it's working out really well. It seems like people are getting the hang of it.
And I've received no real, I got more compliments than I got negatives. The only negative was that short distance from Jackson to Wisconsin, but I have not heard from any of the businesses along there saying that it's been a problem.
It
Two
does-
citizens say it's a little harder to get out on the side streets, but
Well,
Yeah.
I've noticed it's,
Impatient.
you know, my big complaint going into it was the intersection of Vinland and Murdoch. It is a little bit easier because you are able to get out into the intersection a little bit more because there's that gap. And because traffic is slower, granted, you don't have that second lane to turn into, but it doesn't seem to have gotten any worse. It may have gotten better, so.
Yeah, I've mostly got positive feedback, and then basically the residents like it because it's slower speed, and then some of the people that go to North quite frequently said that they really liked it. And actually, one of the, Mr. Carroll's actually told me that he said it's working a lot better than he thought, so.
Yeah.
okay, good.
I just watched the city manager's end of the year wrap up, and he said that a lot of the people that were against it, are now, it worked out real well. And that.
Yeah, I know for it, yeah. Could the overhead signage as you're going in help? As far as you were saying, left lane going in, and all of a sudden, when you're going to go west, where you could eliminate that as you're coming in from the other side, even though you're going 3/4 of the way around at the right lane, overhead sign, the arrows could be changed to eliminate the left turn inside lane and then going straight west on Murdoch, so that you'd go enter it on the right lane. You get the same problem out on Witzel, where traffic is coming in and you've got to move over real quick. We're out on 21 with the old highway and the new highway, where when you're blending, you got to be careful because somebody's coming in that was southbound and going west. So you do have those conflicts even with the modern roundabout.
The problem is that roundabout at that intersection wasn't built like the other ones. It was,
You don't have any overhead signage at that intersection, or at that roundabout on Murdoch?
We don't.
Oh, that was, maybe if that would help.
Well, you got turn lanes
Well, the fact-
on that section
the
of,
fact of the matter is you're still gonna have that westbound traffic that's coming up to Jackson, that's gonna have that right lane already dedicated to them, because that's where they're at, and then that vehicle in the left lane that's coming off
Coming
of
straight.
Jackson, that guy that's already in the right lane, that's his lane. And then also you've got traffic that comes south on Jackson that turns west on Murdoch. I guess it's just a case where the driver that's making that westerly turn off of Jackson, northbound, needs to just
yield a little bit to cars.
just kind of keep your eyes open,
Yeah.
and until we see some crash data, if there is any, who knows?
Well, but in the circumstance you were talking about, when the queue distance is too short,
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the problem.
yeah,
Because you don't have the opportunity to move over at
Yeah.
all if you're stopped.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, so that distance between Wisconsin and Jackson there, that's probably my biggest concern because like I said, the westbound traffic has been backed up right to the roundabout, right, shortly after 3 o'clock in the afternoon is when I see it.
You have to keep an eye on it. I know when we looked at it initially, that wasn't an issue, and
Yeah.
I don't know if traffic might have picked up now that school's in. And,
Yeah, I mean, just, let's keep an eye on it and see what happens.
I'm sure the more people that are using that as a regular route going westbound are starting to realize they need to be in that right lane
Yeah.
approaching it too. So the longer that's in effect,
Right.
the more they'll just self-train themselves too. They get caught in that turn lane a few times, they'll realize they need to be in the right lane.
Well, that's what we thought, we're looking at maybe putting some signage there as you go into the roundabout that says, through traffic, use right
Yeah,
lane.
that would be good. That would be good.
And then the only other thing Mr. Szynski had asked at the last meeting about, and I didn't have a chance to get it on this staff statement, but that the intersection on West Town and Washburn, I did look into that a little bit. When they designed the intersection, they did it intentionally, that it's a left turn only lane and then a through right. And the reason they,
I think it's, it is left turn.
yeah, you'd ask why it wasn't the other way, and they looked at it, and the majority of traffic was turning left, and they actually had an engineering firm that designed that intersection. The other thing that would make it really hard to change now is there's the median, as you go into Quick Trip, lines up with the way that it's lined with the left turn only and then the straight. So it wouldn't even be possible right now without doing some major reconstruction.
Yeah, I just brought it up because it seemed to me that the right turn lane was backing up.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it could happen because, like I think I mentioned last time, I mean, either way, whether you do a straight and left or you do a straight and right, either way, the straight are gonna, if you have the straight and the right, then if somebody's going straight in front of you, you want to go right, you're gonna have to wait. If you do the straight and left, and somebody wants to turn left and you're going straight, you're gonna have to wait. So it's always that dilemma.
Well,
It seemed like when I'd be there, you'd have like 10 cars backed up in the right turn lane and only 2 cars in the left lane. And like I said, it happened numerous times. That I didn't just see it like once
Sure.
or twice, but.
It's kind of an odd situation because you've got a controlled intersection that goes onto private property.
Yeah.
And my follow-up to that is the exit out of there to turn right onto Washburn to go to 21, it's got that separate little apron that goes out. Now, because they're coming off of private property, that particular thing isn't traffic controlled. So does left-turning traffic off of West Town onto Washburn have the right-of-way? And if so, why is there not a yield sign coming out of Quick Trip making that right turn?
good question. State statute says you got to yield coming out of the driveway, technically.
Yeah, and that's a driveway. That is not
Right.
a part of the drive, or the
Right.
exit that's controlled by the traffic
Exactly.
signals. So there should technically, in my belief, be a yield sign as cars are exiting out of Quick Trip, turning right onto Washburn. Because that's a separate,
Yeah, they have a
Apron, it's-
designated.
yeah, it's a
lane for 'em.
designated right turn that's separate from the ingress egress.
I wonder, because it's a controlled intersection, though, if you still need the yield sign.
Car on the right bit.
Well,
It might be because.
it's no different than the intersection of Murdoch and Algoma. Northbound traffic on Algoma has a yield sign when they turn right, so they technically have to yield to left-turning vehicles coming south on Algoma onto Murdoch.
That's right. That's a good point.
So it's the same scenario,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So I think that there should be a yield sign for exiting vehicles turning north onto Washburn out of there. Because it's a separate right turn lane. And we've got those situations all over town, really.
Used to be a problem like going onto the highway, the right turn had a yield sign, at all the exit or entrances to the 41. The right turn had a yield sign, but if you were going straight through, or making a left turn from the opposite direction, you should have had the right of way, but these people weren't obeying the yield sign. I ran into it a lot by, what if I'd be going to the, in the area by Algoma and 41, I think it was, or Jackson, by Jackson at 41. I was going north on Jackson, and I was
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
take a left to go south on 41. There was a yield sign for the people going south on Jackson, and then they never wanted to yield.
Well, that's why they reconfigured those
Yeah,
on and
yeah.
off ramps when they rebuilt
Yeah,
them.
that's much better.
Got rid of it.
Right.
I was thinking like, we have a lot, these large commercial developments, like Nina's got a nice setup where they put roundabouts by all the major things. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in this case, Quick Trip actually paid for the signals there. It was part of their
Oh,
planned
was it?
development. Yeah. So they told, the city told them, well, if they were insistent they had them, and the city said, okay, well, then you have to pay for the design and the engineering work and the installation and this equipment, so they actually paid for it.
Well, I just, just for clearing it up because of the way it's laid out, I really, and a yield sign isn't going to affect their customers leaving.
No.
It just puts the responsibility on somebody. There's a consequence for somebody if you end up meeting nose to nose.
Sure. Yeah, I can look into that. That's no problem.
Anybody have anything else?
So, what was the conclusion, Linwood? And
I'm going to put it on the agenda for one of the next meetings, probably the next one. The next one, we're going to have a little bit fuller agenda, so I'll try to get it on that one. But I'll get it on one of the next agendas as a request, and then we'll notice it.
Okay.
And then I can also do some traffic cones.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.